Today we're gonna be looking at 8 cancelled features in Dead by Daylight, from small details to actually game changing. Custom breakable walls for each realm. During the PTB of the Chains of Hate DLC, Behavior introduced a game changing mechanic, breakable walls. The thing was that the breakable walls introduced in this PTB were visually designed to fit into Dawg Saloon, meaning that it is possible the devs plan to make custom breakable walls for every single realm. This caused a small problem due to some walls in Dawg not being visually clear as breakable walls, and this gave confusion to killers. And also, this would mean that making custom breakable walls to every realm will take extra resources. And instead, on live release, they changed the visual design to be more similar to palettes and the same for every single realm. Realistic generator noises. With the introduction of the Descent Beyond chapter, they started reworking maps and interactables in the game to modernize the game more, adding better textures and custom animations to generators, palettes and lockers. What they also decided to do is to change the sound effect of the new generators to be more realistic. What ended up happening is people calling them car startup noises. I'll let you take a listen to this. Due to how loud and annoying the sounds were for everyone, the devs shadow nerfed them to the new, less loud generator repair noises that we have to this day. Dynamic Blood System. In the PTB for the 5.1.0 mid-chapter patch on July, Behavior tested a dynamic blood mechanic where injuring a survivor would make them look bloody all over them. This was a thing that was requested for a long time, in which people wanted Prestigious to work on every single cosmetic. Since the way Behavior does these prestige cosmetics is different and it's personally handcrafted instead of being an extra layer or texture on top, the closest solution was this dynamic blood system, as it was already used in the game during the Demogorgon's Mori and the Oni's Mori, as you can see here. And also, it's used when you get puked on with Plague or infected with Nemesis, as it's the same texture just a different color. However, after this PTB, we never saw this mechanic back again. And no words from the developers either. Early Game Collapse. Early Game Collapse was supposed to be a mechanic introduced to help killers with a very bad early game like Trapper and Hag to have a chance at defending generators and setting up without requiring the perk Corrupt Intervention, one of the most used perks on top tier killers. An early concept was revealed on stream.
Finally, the third thing we're going to look into over the next year is something that's quite similar to what we did last year when we introduced the endgame collapse, but is going to apply to the beginning of the game instead. So we're really looking at cleaning up and making that start game experience as fun as possible for everyone involved in the game.
However, according to the developers, this was very boring to play and not engaging for survivors, and so they ended up completely cancelling the early game collapse idea. I also think an issue that could happen with such a mechanic is survivors intentionally starting a chase with killers like Trapper or Hag, so they cancel the early game collapse. And I agree with the devs that it was not a very good idea from the beginning. The Smasher. The Smasher was one of the 9 prototype killers in DBD, and there is no footage of him, no files, no remnants in the code, but the devs revealed what his power was supposed to be.
One that never made it, or did, was called the Smasher. And that one could just destroy the entire level. That's so good.
Early in the game, in the early prototype, the Smasher would be destroying the entire environment in order to chase survivors. That meant that he could bust down the shack or break the entire walls of jungle gyms. This was a nightmare to program and balance, and so we never heard of the Smasher ever again. Like I said at the start of this fact, yeah, there were 9 killers prototyped. We don't know much about them, and this is a topic that I will talk in a future video of Mysteries of the Fog. So, like always, if you enjoy this type of content, make sure to support me by subscribing to my channel, and that would help a lot. Thank you! Parkour. Another thing that kinda goes along with the Smasher and was something in the early prototype was parkour. The survivors, which at this time were called campers, would be able to jump and climb over stuff in order to escape the killers. The only remnant that stayed of this mechanic was the shack collision roof, which was removed a long time ago, where you could teleport with the nurse on top of the shack and there was even a hole to drop off inside. Again, this would have made the game completely different to what it is now, and so this was scrapped into a more flat gameplay style, possibly because it would be a nightmare to program the traps and animations that would require for every single wall to be climbable. But either way, it kinda sounds cool in my opinion. YouTube shirts. This is sadly one of my favorite features that were completely removed from the game, and it was not the developer's fault. So, back in 2017, Behavior made Twitch shirts for Dwight and Meg that were given to all good streamers in the community. And of course, a lot of YouTubers were asking if they would do something similar for them, a similar reward program. Turns out, it was leaked that YouTube shirts for Meg and Dwight were already designed and inside the game, but according to McCode himself, in one of the dev streams, YouTube was not interested on this type of partnership, so they sadly could not continue with this.
About the YouTube shirt, it is a dead project.
Yeah, the YouTube shirt is something we really wanted, but YouTube replied to us saying, nope, we're not interested in that kind of thing, which is absolutely fine. It's their right. They can do whatever they want with their brand.
But that answers the question, and
it's a final answer. We're not going to come back to that.
I really wish they had the YouTube shirts back, because I kinda want one for my survivors. Wraith rework. Back in the days, and I'm talking super old school DVD, Wraith was one of the worst killers in the entire game, the less lethal one, and basically just a killer that noobs used, and he needed some tweaks to his power and add-ons to become good. Well, this was when Behavior decided to make the Wraith Cube, and just as a disclaimer, in the past, we were supposed to be getting cube updates, which is also something that they completely scrapped into what we now know as the mid-chapter and just chapter releases. But anyways, they focused on entire quality of life changes for Wraith, including spawning cloaked, increasing the speed while invisible, tweaking the uncloaked mechanic, and allowing him to interact with the environment while cloaked, like breaking generators or walls. But they also worked on one really cool concept that did not make it to life, which was to give the Wraith a black and white filter while cloaked and make blood very visible, like in this Bloodhound perk. This would allow Wraith to only see blood while in the Spirit Fury extremely easily, and they even commented that prestige outfits will also be very visible with this mechanic, but we never got to see this in practice, and the only remnant of this mechanic is the Hound add-on that was later added for Wraith during the Spirits PTB. Now this one is pure speculation, and I cannot confirm if this was supposed to be a feature of the Wraith rework or if this was a community suggestion, but I also remember that Wraith was supposed to have a really cool and creepy mechanic based on silence. So instead of having a Trevor radius or making that very loud breathing sound while cloaked, the closer the Wraith was to a survivor, the less the survivor hears. And this meant that you could be doing a generator, and if Wraith was approaching you, your sound would become quieter and quieter until it was absolute silence. It would have been pretty creepy in my opinion. Let me know which cancelled feature you would have liked to have in the game. As always, thank you for watching and have a nice day.